Welcome to the SC Launch Virtual Summit. I'd like to welcome you all here. And before we get started, we're just going to go over some quick housekeeping items. We will be keeping all of the audience audio muted. So if you have any questions during the webinar, we encourage you to type them in to the webinar question controls. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen. For now, I would just like to do a little audio check. If everybody can hear me, could you please raise your hand in the webinar controls? John, Kella, Kelsey, Joe, welcome. It's so great to see you all here. All right, thank you. You can go ahead and lower those hands. Now I'd like to hand the mic over to Bob Quinn to welcome you all here officially. Bob?
Thank you, Julia, and good morning and welcome to the SC Launch Summit Virtual and Light Edition. Like many organizations, we are holding virtually what was envisioned to be an in-person event. We decided that rather than holding a day-long summit, that we would divide it into 5 sessions, with this being the first of those sessions. The next one will be held on August 13th, and we will be announcing the specifics of that soon, so be on the lookout for that. This has been a great year for our portfolio companies, those in which our affiliate SC Launch Inc. has invested, as well as our client companies, but as you well know, it has not been without its challenges. Companies for which we have provided grant or investment funding have received $104 million in follow-on funding from VCs, angels, etc. during this fiscal year, bringing the total to 1.1 or over $1.1 billion since the inception of SC Launch in 2006. One of our companies had a successful exit, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later. On the other hand, the pandemic and the corresponding economic downturn have presented challenges, but also opportunities. I'm proud of how our companies and our staff have risen to the occasion in response to these challenges. We have awarded an additional $1.5 million to 14 companies. These include technology grants and investments to companies providing or developing COVID-19 related solutions. We also awarded emergency assistance loans for current portfolio companies that have been particularly hard hit as a result of the global economic conditions. Over 20 of our companies are providing or developing COVID-19 related solutions, from manufacturing swabs and reusable protective shields to developing a treatment for the long-term lung damage resulting from contracting the virus. Our companies are addressing several different aspects of this pandemic. I'll end my opening remarks with some bittersweet news, and that is the fact that 2 of our program directors will soon be leaving SCRA. Don't worry, the simultaneous timing of these departures is strictly a coincidence. Christine Dixon-Thiesing, Director of SC Academic Innovations, is leaving the state due to family reasons. She will be joining the University of Texas at Austin, where she will lead technology commercialization, their incubator, as well as their industry engagement. Jill Sorensen, Director of SC Launch, will lead the Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium, or MTech. Jill drafted the original business plans for MTech some 12 years ago, so I know it is extremely exciting and fulfilling for her to have the opportunity to now lead that organization. We look forward to continuing close collaboration with Jill. Although we are saddened by their departure, we are thrilled for them given these tremendous opportunities. We've posted Christine's position and already have received applications from some outstanding candidates. We posted Jill's position yesterday, and we are hopeful that this too will attract top-tier applicants. Please join me in wishing Jill and Christine all the best in the future. I'd like to hand it over now to Lee MacIlwinen, Investment Manager for the Midlands region, who will moderate our panel. Lee?
Thanks, Bob, very much. I appreciate it, and thanks everyone. I join Bob's welcome to the SC Summit, to this webinar, and I'm honored to be able to be your host. We have 5 distinguished panelists, all of whom are actually founders and CEOs of portfolio companies of ours. So it's really truly an honor to be able to get this started with this panel. What I'd like to do is to ask each of them to just introduce themselves, take about 30 seconds. And if you'd also turn on your video so that we could see you as you answer these panels, and then we'll get started. So Bill, why don't you kick us off and then we'll go around from there. Bill, you're muted though.
Nobody can read lips, huh?
That's right. Yeah, thanks. All right, good deal.
I'm Bill West. I'm the CEO of Ellipsis. We have a technology in Greenville, South Carolina that invisibly detects or analyzes website traffic, and we can pick out who's a bot and who's not. We are an SCRA portfolio company. We've had tremendous support from them over the years, and really appreciate it. And we'll talk later about how COVID has affected us and everybody else, but it's been an interesting ride for the last few months.
Indeed. Thanks, Bill. Ryan?
Good afternoon, or good morning, I guess it is. Ryan Heafy, the COO of 6 a.m. City. Many of you know us as Greenville Today, Columbia Today, or Charleston Today, local digital media product delivered as a newsletter at 6 a.m. every morning, curating and packaging and delivering all the local need to know news and events in the markets that we serve.
Good, thanks, Ryan. Harold, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Harold Hughes. I am the founder and CEO of BandWagonFanClub. We are an identity infrastructure company headquartered in Greenville. Talk a little bit about why we're an identity infrastructure company versus a lot of what you all may have read about us over the last few years about us focusing on fan identity, attendee analytics, and the live sporting event and live event space. I'm coming at you from Austin, Texas, where my wife's currently pursuing her PhD at University of Texas, but I'm happy to have a full-time team all in Greenville.
That's great. Julie?
Sure. Julie Moreland. I'm CEO of Vizbii, based in Charleston, and all of our employees are here in Charleston. We have a technology that allows people to express different emotions and subjective states like feelings, moods, by adjusting a graphical image. That data is captured behind the scenes and then in real time reported to companies to allow them to better understand customer experience, employee experience, patient experience, in order to better predict what those individuals' behaviors are going to be in the future. We're just in our 5th year, and also have gotten a lot of great support from the SCRA family, and happy to be here.
Well, thank you for that. And Laura, I don't see you. Are you able to show your webcam as well, or?
Actually, you had the invitation up for just a split second and I wasn't quick enough. My cat-like reflexes didn't quite get to the button fast enough. So if you could send it again, that would be great.
Okay. Well, we can hear you. Why don't you go ahead and do your intro, and I'll have you send that to you so you can get up.
Yeah, so I'm Laura Boccanfuso. I'm the founder and CEO of Robotics. We develop smart robot tutors to support course subject instruction for the K-8 student. We are focused on distance learning solutions currently for providing K-5 instruction that's standards aligned, certified teachers created for students across South Carolina. In our first year of business officially this year, we have, selling commercial product. We are now in about 16 states, and we have about 17 or 18 school districts here in South Carolina. So really excited to hear everyone's comments today about COVID and hear about the experiences other founders have had in terms of pivoting in this time of need. Thanks for coordinating this meeting.
Hey, it's our pleasure. Thanks, Laura. And I'll go ahead. I will, as soon as you log in, I'll jump off because I think there's a limitation of 5. So we want to make sure we highlight guest speakers. But as you heard from Bill, we really do want to focus on the topic at hand, which is about the pandemic, how the impact it's having to your businesses, and really how you've adapted. And the goal is we'll get into different pieces of that about how it's impacted your cost structure, finances, your location, use of real estate. I know there are a lot of different aspects to that, but maybe if I could go, Bill, to you, since we spoke about this briefly, and just kick us off, that'd be great. And then we'll just riff off of these, and then just ask each one of the panelists to kind of jump in as you feel comfortable.
Sure. Well, we Oh, yeah, we might have seen the impact or the effect of COVID earlier than most because we're predominantly serving e-commerce companies and predominantly small e-commerce companies, very small in some cases, through the platform and other e-commerce platforms. And we started seeing more store closings in January than ever before. And we couldn't quite figure out what it was. It continued and even accelerated in February. So we started talking to them. What's going on with your business? And we found that most of the very small e-commerce companies either carry limited inventory or they drop ship. And they weren't getting their supply chain from anymore. That is shut down entirely. So they were closing like crazy. We actually closed our business, our offices in March, and COVID is really here. Our original objective then was just like many of you, was to stay alive for 30 or 60 days until this thing passed. And then Bob Quinn was good enough to point out that we may want to make our planning horizon longer than 30 to 60 days. He said, you may want to plan this out to the fall. And that was actually very, very good advice. So we put a financing plan to so we could survive to at least September. So that was good advice. The next month in April, it said, all right, looks like we can survive. March, May and June, we were doing fine. June looks like one of our best months ever. Our revenues are up 45%, but in a different way than we planned. We did no product launches, but the customers we have, and we charge a percentage of the revenue, are having extraordinary months right now. So our percentage of revenue is huge right now, and we're up about 45% since the beginning of COVID. So while it was a scary couple of months, good advice from Bob Quinn. I think we're gonna make it now.
Thanks, Bill.
It'd be a shame if I was on mute that whole time.
It would.
I think I could follow up with some of what Bill was saying, is that we saw from a marketing perspective our highest performance actually up until right about now, where our revenues were growing and are now flatlining because those who were selling product all decided in February, March to pull the plug on marketing spend, focus on saving their staff. And so now we saw a significant drop, almost to about 75% drop in new contracts coming in February. Now that's starting to ramp back up as people are figuring out how to adapt to COVID and what their new marketing strategies are. But we saw a pause and a lot of dollars shifted to the right, and a lot of new contracts didn't come in a timely manner. But now we're almost back up to where we were before. But it's taken now this big chunk of revenue that's supposed to come in over the next few months. So Q3 actually will be our lower revenue quarter on growth. So we're kind of flatlined because the business was growing, but marketing dollars have changed. Fun fact, though, we're in the digital space, and a lot of money has moved out of traditional advertising platforms where you can get more D2C contact and direct conversion. So we've seen a lot of opportunity now and new advertising and revenue strategies that we've been able to deploy. So like Bill said, the money's coming in slightly different funnels, but actually has opened up more opportunity for us as a business. So we're excited about the potential growth here going forward, and it's definitely been an interesting ride.
Yes, it has.
I can share a little bit about our trials a little bit. So from a timing standpoint, I don't think anyone was prepared. I don't think anyone was less prepared than we were. We just signed a multi-year lease in our office on Rutherford in February. Fully furnished it and designed it, so the team could get there and be comfortable and be productive. We had a board meeting in February as well, where I was talking to the team primarily about opportunities to really expand on the technology we had. As I kind of alluded to in my introduction, I started BandWagon about 5 years ago, primarily trying to figure out how to make the live event space better for sports fans and music fans and any type of fan that was going to a live event. And so we originally started as a ticket marketplace and then pivoted to really being a data and analytics company for live event attendees. So our core customer were professional sports teams, large theaters and venues. And because of that, when COVID hit in really early March, our industry, and things started to get shut down, I remember we had 2 calls scheduled with 2 NBA teams the week of, was it the 12th or the 13th, whatever that week of March was. And they sent me a couple of emails saying, hey, we're probably going to push this off a little while. And I was like, okay, cool. No worries. I'm trying to think through it. And then the news starts coming out. NBA postponed season, MLB postponed season, and everything started to just stop. And so if you're like us, it's focusing on fan identity and attendee analytics, and there are no fans and there are no attendees. Our revenue that was on pace to do almost 10 times what we did last year completely went to zero, completely zero. And so I looked at my team. I said, okay, we're keeping everyone on. We have this much money to make it until this time. And that's one of the things I thought about from a leadership standpoint was I want to give you all the information you need so that you could have confidence in whatever decision you need to make. I was like, this is how long we have money. If we don't make another penny or raise another penny, this is how long we have. But let's think through what we can do. And so the wheels started turning and we had to pivot and come up with some new things. But ultimately it was, crazy timing. But I think that, we were fortunate. Our investors, reached out. SCRA obviously had some great programs and supporters to SC Launch. And so it's been really interesting to be here in June. And I'm the conservative one. I don't think that this is going to be much different for sports until spring 2021.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I can share a little bit too. We were fortunate. I would like to say that I'm clairvoyant or have some sort of, futuristic view. But last fall, we had a pretty big space, 2,000 square feet on King Street, and I reached out to the landlord and said, we're going out of R&D and going into commercialization. And then the plan has always been in the 5th years to go to exit. So that the strategy from day one has been to build the products, get them, deploy them, proof of concept, get some really good, happy customers, and then move toward exit. So I literally cut all of our overhead by 75% between August and October, and went into a co-shared space with Low Country Local, which, was like $300 a month or something like that. So I went from all this overhead streamlined down to just a couple of us really focused on the business every day. So when this started hitting, I thought, gosh, I'm really fortunate that I had already done the hard work of really revamping, reorganizing the business. We were really grateful to qualify for both the PPP and the EIDL loans. So the other ironic thing is I only needed 250,000 more raise on to finish out all my fundraising. And so that just dried up. Of course, private investors are not going to write a check at this moment. Well, guess what the PPP and the EIDL were added up to? I ended up, in the most bizarre way, getting the investment dollars I needed at significantly less interest than what I was doing on my convertible notes. So we just ended up in a good place. And fortunately, being a SaaS, software as a service, we were already digital. So it doesn't require anyone to physically be anywhere, deliver something physically. We came out in a really good place. And I just signed our 2nd largest distributor a couple of weeks ago. What we're seeing is that the COVID is driving our healthcare distributors. They're doing better because now that's more in demand to have patients expressing what's going on with them, being able to capture that remotely as opposed to physically being into a doctor's office. So we're actually seeing that growth in that market due to COVID. The other markets, Harold, to your point, like customer experience, we've lost a couple of our smaller customers just because their business dried up. But fortunately, the larger paying customers are growing, and we only really lost the smaller licenses.
Thanks, Julie. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
just jumping off of what everyone else was saying, we really started to reevaluate where we were going. I think initially, our go-to-market strategy was always to go to trade shows and to start to build up the presence of the company in industry and with existing distributors and resellers who already had channels into public schools. That's that's our main sort of bread and butter, right? As we go to school districts, we sell to districts that have a number of elementary schools. We also do some private sales that are less large, so lower volume sales. But the idea was that was going to be our whole plan. So when COVID hit and all the trade shows, including South by, where we had a couple of presentations that we'd gotten accepted for, and we had a big presentation with AWS that we were excited about, all got canceled. We had to really reevaluate where we were going to put our efforts in terms of our go-to-market strategy. And even though the demand was still there and the need was still there, the venues at which we were going to really represent the company and get the word out were completely, taken out from underfoot. So we actually started looking at other sources, just like I think Bill was talking about this, looking at other channels. We started to talk to the CARES Act funding provides a number of opportunities for school districts to fulfill specifically distance learning needs. And that was right in our niche. We just hadn't really focused on that. So it kind of put a sharp point on the value proposition that we were providing these school districts in a way that was timely because they needed it, but also was exactly what the product was being designed for. So we literally just, it was dumb luck. I think in a lot of ways for us, we had been planning to do distance learning, but it certainly wasn't going to be this early in the game. And so we felt very lucky, fortunate that we had been preparing for that eventuality, and we could step up our efforts to accelerate the development of that particular part of our product. So yes, we had to make a major shift, but we have just an amazing technical team, and we were able to make that pivot pretty quickly.
Well, you raise a really good. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just curious, Lee, amongst the team here, it sounded like a couple of people have mentioned alternate funding solutions that delayed. Like, for example, we're in the middle of a fundraising round, but we haven't had to close it as fast or take as much necessarily because we're able to get grant funding. I mean, the PPP and SBA loans were huge and were very beneficial to our company. But we're also seeing a lot of other grant funding opportunity in a lot of different industries that maybe in the past were going, not necessarily we're taking them from nonprofits, but they were going different ways, or new things have become available. So we're now seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential grant funding that prevents us from having to dilute our business. So I was curious if anyone else has gotten or pursued other grant funding within their verticals. It's something we just weren't looking for before.
So we are actually doing the same thing. I think that, so we're working with the Department of Homeland Security on an opportunity that's kind of like an SBIR. It's their Silicon Valley Innovation Program. They basically put out a call for a company to kind of support or suggest a new identifier other than our social security numbers. As you all kind of know a little bit about us, like we've been focusing on identity and really thinking through, what makes a person in a digital database. And there are ways that we can manage that without sharing personal identifiable information. So, today as we had to pivot, we started to pivot in February, or at least thinking through it, and now, kind of really leaned into it. BandWagon's positioned as an identity infrastructure company that helps companies transparently manage, aggregate, and store consumer information. And so because we separate personal identifiable information, PII, from that demographic, brand preferences, and all the other choices that go with that individual, now we're able to kind of help spin up a new identifier. And so we're actually working with the Department of Homeland Security, which is non-dilutive funding. A Fortune 50 company reached out to us about trying to work on something else around police brutality and database tracking. And so that's something else that we're looking at. And so we do expect the live events will come back. So we've got Aura, which is one of the products on our website, and that's going to stay. We're launching another product called Ideal Seat next month. But we think that we've really got a huge opportunity for non-dilutive funding, Ryan, where we're seeing either government agencies or the public sector looking to leverage technology in a way, not only think about how contact tracing is going to be used, but also ways to better preserve identity and data for consumers.
Okay, it's good. I mean, it's a great illustration, Harold, of taking advantage of what's out there. Laura, I heard you jump in as well. Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was going to add a couple of quick things. We have in the past for R&D, applied for and been successful in getting federal funding from, large institutes like the National Institutes of Health, but also from NSF. And then just recently, because of, CARES Act funding, there's been appropriated funding specifically for education. The problem is, it's knowing about the opportunities when they are available. So one instrument that we use is Grants Watch, which is well worth the nominal subscription fee that you pay to get updates about it. You can exactly tailor what kinds of updates or notifications you get, but it opens up a whole world of potential funding, not just for yourself, but for organizations you might be working with who may be a little strapped, who may be very interested in your product, but don't necessarily have the funding or the inclination to jump in head first. So grants are a fantastic way to sort of facilitate that process. We found there's so many local, regional, and state grants that go anywhere from a couple $1,000, $5,000 all the way up to a couple million per year. So we've definitely been talking to the governor's office. They've got appropriated funding that they want to help families that are disconnected from school because they have no internet access, for example, all the way down to CARES Act funding that's specifically for large districts to help deploy full-scale solutions to their students. So I think that's a great point. Federal, state funding, and like I said, getting connected to a platform that can keep you abreast of what opportunities may be available for you and your customers, I think is huge nowadays.
Yeah, we talked, I know, Laura, we were speaking about things like rural broadband, where that's now a topic of consideration because it's a need for the kids to be able to actually learn now that it's all virtually done. And there's a great fit with what you have in your product offer, but just knowing about it is part of the issue.
Yes, we've partnered with big wireless providers now that we would have never reached out to had it not been for this new funding. At least not at this time, right? But like I said, that was a plan for later on down the road, but now we've negotiated contracts with T-Mobile and AT&T, so that's all part of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, Lee, the overall thing I hear from everyone, and we've experienced ourselves, is it's not business as usual anymore. And for the first month or so, I said, how can we get back to what we were doing? And it's not that way. As Ryan pointed out, funding is different. Laura and Harold pointed out, even your business opportunities are different, and we're finding that. And but there's some good to it. It used to be if there was something critical happening, our people would say, well, I'll get to that in the morning, or I'll get to that on Monday. But now they say, I'll get to it tonight when the kids go to bed. And they're working at all hours. There is no work day anymore. So there's things being done all the time, which is fascinating. But as a manager, I think we have to understand that they're in a different environment too. I mean, they're working in a family room with Legos under the table, and they're stepping on those as they go out, and kids are coming in and out, dogs are barking. It's a different environment, so that's not business as usual either. But I see more people carving off workspaces, carving off an office. One person's going to put a shed in his backyard and air condition it and go out there. So
that's what I've got right here, Bill. This is a shed off the garage.
Yeah,
no art hung yet. That's what I'm gonna do.
So I think business as usual, as Julie just pointed out, is not going to be. We're not going back to business as usual. I don't think. I think everybody's kind of enjoying it. Productivity is up, getting a better work-life balance, and as managers, I think we have to appreciate that. It's not business as usual for them either.
That's true. You raise a really good question. I mean, Ryan, just to jump in on that point. So how have you changed your approach to your staffing, to working with your employees, increasing productivity? And then last question would be what are you thinking about when you go back about real estate? Are you going to take the same space that you had before? do you see yourselves in an office or continuing virtually for an extended period of time? I'm interested in everybody's thoughts on that too. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Our company's debating it this morning. Back in our managers meeting again. So we just brought everyone back to the office for the past 3 weeks or so. Cases are now on the rise. We, in the past 5 days, have 5 employees having to go get tested because of direct contact with positive cases. So we're in co-working spaces in 7 cities across the Southeast, which we've been paying for the entire time to not break our lease. That's 10 grand a month over the past, it's adding up. How do you, the question our manager said is, do we just go to work from home all together and just pull the plug on all the co-working spaces? It saves us a ton of money. It makes a lot of sense from a business perspective, but we're struggling with the culture side. We have a very strong, positive company culture, but there is a benefit that we see in some of the direct relationships. We already operate in a remote capacity from city to city, but there is something about having another person that you can bounce off of. So we may pivot to a model where we get together 1 or 2 days a week instead of all the time, and have more hot desk type opportunities instead of fixed offices. So we're actively evaluating, but I can say we've come back to the office, and I'm not sure that that's right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're going back, Lee. And we've talked about it a lot with our group. The other side of it, though, is we have a lot of entrepreneurs that lease space in our place, so we're probably going to do something. But we don't plan to have a lease that we guarantee anymore. It'll probably be a revenue share of some sort. And if our landlord is one of the attendees, my phone should be ringing right now.
Our strategy, one of the things that I think I've leaned in the most on is working on becoming a better manager. I'm a first-time founder, first-time job creator. I spent a decade in corporate America, and my management style has been the aggregation of everything I love that my favorite manager did to the things that I wish my managers would have done, and then a little bit of blending from leaning on mentors and folks that I've just kind of looked up to on how they've created culture in their companies. As I mentioned, we just got our office. We've got our lease. We're continuing to pay it. As a person who is a landlord as well, I've got my house being rented in Greenville. I understand that if I can continue to pay, that'll help my landlord not feel a pinch there. And so far, we're still managing that. But because of that, I think that because we had just finished outfitting the office, one of the things that we did in March was we gave the team members a bonus and said, hey, here's a couple $100, go buy something to make being at home more manageable. Like the fact that y'all haven't seen my son on this webinar yet is astonishing. I don't apologize for it anymore. He's a cute kid, and he's a cute kid anyways. And so he walks in, I make sure I mute and I talk to him. But I think that the one thing that's being completely under discussed across all of this is how parents are working. Childcare is such a huge thing. Now there's talks about whether or not kids are going to go back in the fall. My wife and I really had to think through, like, okay, she's got them in the morning until about 1, and I've got them until about 5 or 6. And it's exactly what Bill says, like, I'll get to it after I put them in bed, and then I'm up until 1 or 2 a.m. every day. And so I'm the only one on my team with kids, but wanted to make sure that we're working on their sanity. So we've done some things like our normal morning meeting was going to start at like 9 a.m. Is when it used to start, but we moved it to like 10:30, I think. And so it's like, because people were having weird sleep cycles. One of our team members sent me a message last night at 2 a.m. And of course I was awake, saying, hey, I'm having some trouble getting to sleep. I'm probably gonna miss the morning meeting. Here's what I'm working on. We do a daily stand-up. We do an afternoon checkout. We've added those types of things. And so it's been really, we've gone all virtual since I think March 23rd or March 19th, somewhere around that. We're gonna keep our office. And because of the way our team is, collaboration standpoint, they're all technical. This is the software engineers. We want them together so that they're sharing thoughts and it feels more collaborative instead of interrupting, as it would be when you get a random Slack message. But yeah, our approach is that we are 100% going to stick with real estate. I think that we are going to make sure that we have some dynamic with the schedule flexibility. But yeah, I think our management of this has been probably the most important thing. We did one last thing I'll share is we worked with a local company, Home Sweet Home, that does like caramels and other sweets, and we did a virtual cooking class. So she was able to package everything to make banana bread, and everyone got a kit, and it was bananas, flour, the pan, the spoon, everything. And I was like, okay, this is like a virtual team building activity. And so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep my team sane right now.
Yeah.
We've fortunately been very productive. I don't know if we're at the same productivity levels, but I'm just trying to work on sanity and mental health of the team right now.
That's a
Yeah,
really
Lee,
good point.
we're not going back. Yeah, I made that decision. We've been virtual since the beginning of March. I was on an airplane almost every week anyway, and that's what's the craziness about this situation is my customers are mostly on the West Coast. We have a SaaS, technology plugin for large tech companies. So of course, all my meetings, I was, on the West Coast most of the time, and that's not happening. So everything's video anyway. But one thing that I've done that is working really well is we now have a weekly happy hour, and you can't discuss work. So this is, you get your beverage of choice, if it's a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever the case may be. We spend an hour, no more. We cut it off at that hour, and everybody just catches up, and you got kids crawling and cats crawling across the desk, and you get to have that personal reconnection with that team member that you would normally get by the coffee maker or walking into the building, hey, Liz, how's your kids doing? Or how's your dog? I understand he was sick last week. And so we basically, once a week, you're not required. You can just show up if you can. And we just get to check in with each other.
It's really important. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to add, Julie, I'd be interested in knowing, is that during work hours typically, or is that after work hours?
We usually go around 5 o'clock. So that way it's not stretched into when they might be trying to cook dinner, get ready for their family. So it's usually 5 o'clock.
Got it.
Ours is 3 o'clock. We do
I was going to ask that question because so when I was at Techstars in Austin, there's a large group of people that still keep in touch, and they have their happy hour every week on Saturdays, which I thought was really interesting because it's so far from the work week. It presents other challenges, right, in terms of attendance and, just having sort of that ability to carve out separate time. So I like that idea of having it just butting up against the end of the workday. I think that's great. We have come back and we have lots of space. So we each have basically our own office, our own room to work in. We all have face shields, and we've done all of that. Really starting to reevaluate. We have had a team meeting yesterday about it to reevaluate whether we will continue this because we have a physical product. We do have robots that need tending and shipping and boxing when we get orders in. It does present a little bit of, some requirement for someone to physically be present here occasionally, but it certainly doesn't require us to all be here all the time. So we've actually really seriously considered going back to a once or twice a week schedule where we don't have the full team here, but there is that ability to kind of schedule time in the office to have that camaraderie, because I do think there is something lost. Even as great as our distance, our remote work was when we were all at home for several weeks, we did lose out a little bit, I think, on that social aspect of just knowing that, hey, we're all kind of here together. I've got a question, I can just kind of ask so-and-so over in the next office over. I think that is lost. And I do think that we really thrive in that. So I think as a company, we enjoy that. We've had conversations about not wanting to lose that altogether. So I think that's important. But also, the point of having children at home, that's been a huge question. We fortunately haven't had to, we haven't had to do too much change in terms of our meeting schedule because of that, but always being sort of sensitive to the fact that people have kids at home, and this time can be extremely stressful when they're stuck inside with you at home all day. can be really difficult. So, obviously flexibility is really important for that too.
So do you, on that same note, we heard from Bill, kind of the workday has changed. It's not an 8 to 5 anymore. What have you done to kind of adapt to that environment? Because it looks like this is going to be the new normal for a while. I'm interested in your thoughts there. And then also to riff on what Harold mentioned is we've been getting a lot of calls just from client companies that are struggling with the whole idea of a work-life balance, where it's a little bit easier when you're going to work and then you have family obligations. Here, it's all mixed in together. And how do you deal as the founders and managers with the stress that and the anxiety that is kind of caused as a result of this new condition that we're in? So I'll throw that out there and see who wants to jump in on this.
Well, I'll honestly say I haven't figured it out yet. So, some people are really, they've figured out how to exercise more. And, since they're at home and don't have the commute, I honestly haven't figured it out yet. So it has been incredibly stressful. And I'm looking forward to anybody who's got some ideas on how to work that out.
We've got a happy hour. That's a great start.
I mean,
That's easy.
I think that's definitely part of the solution. I think having that ability to communicate with people, and that life isn't always rosy. Like today, I'm having a really hard day. My 2-year-old literally flopped out and had a full out fit during my 2 o'clock conference call, right? Whatever it is, I think it's important to have that ability to share with people you work with so that they understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and Lee, I don't think it's business as usual at all. I mean, it's an appreciation for, and while people may do stuff at midnight or 1 o'clock, and like we've experienced all the time, and do stuff overnight, they also may say, I'm gonna go from noon to 3 o'clock and take a hike with my my family. And
Right.
so the workday is not going to exist. I don't think. It's just, I'll get my family done and I'll get my work done, but when I can. And we're finding overall that's working out well. I mean, productivity is going to be up because people, I think, appreciate the fact that they're not commuting anymore. They don't have to be somewhere on a slow day. They can do it when the work demands. So it's a challenge for managers for sure, but I think it's the new normal.
Well, we've looked at. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
You got it, Harold.
Well, thanks. What we've looked at has been really systematic. Like I talked about us moving our start time for that morning meeting, our daily stand up from 9 a.m. Eastern to I think 11 a.m. Eastern, because people were really having a hard time figuring out their sleep schedule. You're waking up later, you're going to bed later. We added an afternoon meeting, which is like a checkout, which is at 3:30 Eastern. And so normally that's 20 or 30 minutes. And then on Friday, we'll do that a weekly stand-up, which is like the sprint review, and that's normally show and tell, and that's normally afternoon around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and after that ends, we do our happy hour. And so that's what we've done, like from the systematic side of it. We've really changed how dynamic the schedule is, because maybe our CTO has told us, like, yeah, sometimes I make sure I am just awake to do the stand-up, and I go back to bed for a couple hours because I was up until 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And so I think what's going to actually happen is that you're going to probably see more companies focus on dedicated work hours, like collaborative work hours, and say, hey, team, I need everyone to be available from 11 until 2 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we'll schedule internal meetings on Mondays, and then we'll have a social hour on Fridays. I think that's what's going to be it. One of the things that we've started working on internally as the team's been building has been creating what would we call it, a personal user manual, if any of you are familiar with that phrase, where basically you write up like what is the best way to work with you, what is the best way to manage you, what is the best way to lead you, and so I can put in mine and say, like, I'm not a morning person. There's no way I'm doing a meeting before 9 a.m., which is why I missed all of your beautiful faces yesterday. There's no way I'm doing a meeting before 9 a.m. because that's when I'm with my kid. And another person may say, well, I'm not really, like, I get anxious on video calls. And so if I get on first and no one's there and I'm just staring at myself, I may drop out or something like that. So we're trying to think through how people work, and that user manual and having people create is really important. So I'm fortunate to be a night owl. So my son goes to bed and then I can hang out with my wife some, and then no one's scheduling meetings at 11. But I will say, Bill, I don't know if you kind of alluded to this. I've taken more calls at midnight in the last 3 months or
Yeah.
after midnight, just because, you know, you send an email and then they respond. You're like, well, okay, well, let's just do this. And like, there's no, you know, my wife is fine. She's not worried about it. And so I think that it's going to be very intentional for managers to create really concrete schedules on what it is we need from you. And,
Yeah.
you know, our team looked at the unemployment rates and like, you know, we're just so glad to still have jobs. You know, to your point, Bill, we want to absolutely do this, but it's important to make sure that while you're pivoting, you still are getting check-ins from what your team wants to be building. You know, your team could say, hey, I really signed up to do this, and now that we're going to do that, it's great to have a paying job, but I'm just less passionate about it. And so I understand, you know, we are in a pandemic, but mental health is like the #1 thing on our list for our team, and we're trying to find ways to stay with it. And I think we'll keep trying to poke around at it, but for now, I think we're okay. We're going to try to keep, you know, an eye on it for sure.
We're doing similar. We just relaunched some specific aspects of a company culture committee. So our staff internally actually oversee the culture committee, and it's not part of our management, where they set up and have different experiential things that they do. And we basically allocate a budget to the company culture around different themed things each quarter that they handle. They help us plan stuff for our company retreat, which now may be in a remote capacity. That's where we bring all of our staff together for one time a year. So we actually maybe go into a virtual retreat, which is something that we just started putting on our radar in the past couple of weeks. We have a mentorship program that we've expanded now, or are expanding. That was mostly for onboarding employees that we're going to now start to do with regular contact with people that are in different roles within the business.
Hey, Ryan, can I
Yep.
interrupt you and ask, and for you to finish your answer, but also how big is your team? Because that all sounds awesome. So there's 5 of us, and so I'm just wondering, at what point did y'all add those types of things, and then how big is your company? And then maybe after you're done, everyone else can kind of say how big their
Yeah.
teams are, because I'm sure that the attendees listening would want to figure out who's saying what based on how big we are. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 30 full-time and 6 part-time. We put that all into play when we got to about, a lot of the pieces started coming into play when we got to about 15 people. But there's different aspects of it. Like we have spin-offs of our culture committee where there's a parent, they're trying to create a parenting group right now to support each other while they're home more effectively. The culture committee comes and kicks off the idea of the happy hours. And what we've done is put a lot of the empowerment on the employees to bring the ideas to the table that they want to do, like your bread baking thing, which I think is totally awesome. Gonna steal that one. But like those type of things that the team is delivering, our staff delivers to the culture committee, and they work kind of with management to implement as many of the things as we can. One of the things I think that's been most interesting tied to the culture has been the way you create culture with new staff. So we've brought on like 4 new staff in the past 60 days. And we use a platform called Trainual, which if anyone's not familiar with Trainual and you're a small business, it's like the best. So I'm an engineer by degree. I run a media company now, but process in a business, Trainual is the best for onboarding staff. We've taken editors in our company, brought them on, and within 10 days, they're operating at the same level as our other staff because it's all lined out in this process. So we had a playbook for how we do what we do. We put it into Trainual, and now it's an automated onboarding process. It cuts out all the time from a management perspective to have to teach. So they go through Trainual, they learn it all, and then they sit down with us to apply the skills versus having to teach and apply at the same time. But that lets us now spend more time focusing on the mental health or I kind of joke that I feel like Dr. Phil some days because you're fielding more of those kinds of calls now because that's what the challenges are. So the things that I never thought I would be dealing with in the office from a mental health perspective are coming up more and more often. A lot of our staff, maybe I'm not sure what the age demographics are in each of your companies, but we have a lot of young staff who live at home by themselves in an apartment and haven't seen anybody, which is the opposite side of the ones that have the kids that they want to escape from. So we have this battle. It's like some of our staff need an office because they need to get away from the kids, and other ones need the office to get to see somebody because they're lonely. So we do have a really unique battle, but a lot of these different incentives and the way that we bring people together virtually is great, but it's not necessarily achieving the full capacity of what we need from a mental health perspective. And I don't have the solution.
And Ryan, I mean, just listening to all of you speak, I would love for this to continue almost for another hour. There's so much that you guys have to offer. We're touching a really valuable subject. If I could ask, just we have a couple more, about another minute before we wrap up, and I get it over to Julia for the awards. We talked about Harold's got 5. Ryan, you have 30. Julie, how many in yours as far as the number?
4 full-time and 5 part-time.
Okay, Laura, how about you? Just number of
We have
employees.
8 full-time, 7 part-time.
Okay, and Bill?
2 full-time and 17 part-time project contractors.
Wow, so you're right. So we're all over the map as far as size and complexity, because I know, Ryan, to your point, you have a lot of people that are virtual that are in different offices. Well, I'd be remiss, first of all, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to do this. This has been a great exchange. And I want to kind of elicit another invite. We should do this again, whether it's 3 or 6 months from now, your schedule's permitting. That's certainly my commitment. I'd love to get us back, and then we could ask the question. We'll see kind of what's happening with the pandemic. And if things are exactly as I suspect they will be, it's still going to be with us. But it'd be a great question is how do we adapt it, and how are you doing with the new normal? But thank you again very, very much for spending the time with us. And I'll ask at this point, before we get in, I want to turn it over to Julia. There were a couple of questions. We had one question that asked about repeating the name of the program that allows you to see the grant. Laura, I think that was yours.
Yeah, it's Grants Watch.
Grants Watch.
Or okay. Grant Watch, sorry, no S, Grant Watch.
No S, Grant Watch. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the other suggestion I saw from one was the name of the happy hour. She calls it Yappy Hour. So that's a great, just a tagline of ours. We hopefully get going. At this point, other than just thank you for everyone who's attending. What we're going to go into now is I'll turn it over to Julia. We have some awards that we do in our summit on an annual basis, and we have 2 awards for companies, and we have a filmed version of that. So if you can stay with us for a few minutes, and then I'll wrap it up at the very end. So Julia, I'll turn it over to you.
Each year, we take great pleasure in recognizing SC Launch companies that have truly excelled by presenting them with awards. This year's awards are the Company of the Year Award and the Billboard Award. Some of the qualities of the Company of the Year awardee include having a broad and global reach, being on the forefront of growing market trends, offering a product that is unique and readily adopted, and having the ability to control the best routes to market, a relentless focus on excellence and execution, a strong brand differentiation from the competition, and a deep understanding of relevant value chains and how to capture that value. Some of the qualities of the Billboard awardee include introducing a breakthrough innovation with significant market impact, being recognized as the best in class in the market, managing the company's innovative product or service offerings with skill and good judgment, earning competitive distinction, and using the company's impact to scale and grow in South Carolina. This year's Company of the Year Award is presented to Engage Talent, which during this fiscal year was acquired by Workforce Logic. We are thrilled by exits such as this, particularly when the company remains in South Carolina to grow and prosper for years to come. This year's Billboard Award is presented to Boyd Bikes. The company's innovative products have been highlighted in several industry magazines, and they have established an international reputation for excellence. Congratulations to both of these companies on receiving these well-deserved awards. Now, let's hear a little bit more about these outstanding awardees.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having me. I wish obviously that we would have done this in person like the summit is usually done every year. But what an honor and what a journey it has been between us and the SCRA and the whole network behind the SCRA and the network that the SCRA made us part of. We were first introduced back in 2015 when we were really early. There was a couple of us sitting in a co-working space with some PowerPoints and big dreams. And SCRA saw the opportunity, saw the challenge that we're trying to solve. So that's a team that they want to back and believe in. Tracked us for a while, and in late 2016, while we were in the middle of a major pivot, and we were just ready to go after a completely different target market with a somewhat of a different concept. In the middle of all of that, they still believed in the team, believed that we can deliver something special, that we're solving a problem that needs to be solved. And that's when they made their first investment in the company. Obviously, not too many investors, professional or otherwise, will look at a company in the middle of a pivot and say, "Yep, that's where I want to put my money." But they did it, and without them at that time, we would not be here. And literally, I would shout this from rooftops. They carried us through a very lean period. And if it wasn't for their support, investment, and network they helped us build towards the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, again, we would not be here. And then, fast forward a couple of years in 2019, where we were acquired by one of the market leaders in workforce logic. And since then, we together filed 4 patents. So that tells you how much we're the innovative DNA runs through the company and how great of a fit that has been. Obviously, all that is great news for South Carolina. It is exactly what SCRA is set out to do, and also as a result of that, we are continue to expand our team here in the South Carolina between Charleston and Columbia. Workforce Logic is committed to the area. So. Cannot thank you all enough, the whole team, from the directorship and the board all the way down to people who helped us with press releases and connecting us with others around the area. Been a great journey, still very involved with us. They are now investors in Workforce Logic and still part of the family. So thank you. Stay safe, y'all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Co-founder of Boyd Cycling.
And I'm Boyd Johnson, also co-founder of Boyd Cycling.
Boyd Cycling is a bicycle wheel manufacturer based here in the upstate of Greenville, South Carolina. We're going on 11 years in business.
And we supply bicycle wheels to bike shops, consumers, and we started working with distributors and OEMs all throughout the world.
And we'd really like to take this opportunity to thank SCRA for their continued support of our company. We started working with SCRA and SC Launch in 2016 at a very pivotal point in our company where we were redesigning our bicycle rims and implementing new innovations, expanding our lineup.
And so with that first round, we were able to release some new models, really set ourselves to the forefront of the bicycle wheel technology, and that really helped us grow. The latest round that we got really helped us more in the sales channel. So, going through more OEM, through distributor, instead of relying on just selling to bicycle shops in a local market.
Yeah, and we've been really fortunate during this unprecedented time to grow our brand and expand the sales channels like Boyd discussed, and really working with a plan that we put together with SCRA and SC Launch for 2019. We're able to implement it successfully again, with their support, we couldn't do it, and we're glad to be here today.
So 2020 has been a crazy year, but you know, we've had a little bit of temporary setbacks, but bicycle industry is thriving, and because of the support, we were able to get a few OEM clients. We signed out a major distributor in the US, and 2020 is looking to be a great year for us, and even better, growing ahead to continue growing.
So thank you, SCRA and SC Launch. We couldn't do this without you.
Yeah, we wish we could be there in person, but this is going to have to be the best that we can do for now.
Let me go ahead and just take this opportunity to thank everybody again for taking the time, especially staying with us for a few minutes for our awardees. Both Boyd Cycling and Engaged Talent are both just well represented here. But I did want to ask one other thing before we officially close the session. We will be sending out a survey, so I would encourage everybody to look for that in your email, and please give us some feedback. We want this was the first time we've ever done it virtually. We're going to be continuing this, as you heard Bob mention. It's one of a 5-part series that we're going to be doing on the summit. So you'll look for other dates coming forward, but let us know your feedback, and I hope everybody, excuse me, has a great rest of the day. Thanks again for joining us.